Hi there, we are here with Harbingers magazine. My name is Karolina Orfinger, and next to me is Alicja Melaniuk. And today we have a special guest who will tell us about being a film producer, what being a film producer is actually about. Her name is Zofia Kujawska. Hi there, it's nice to meet you. How are you?
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm fine. Um, it's very nice to talk to you. I'm happy to uh, give you an insight on the work on film producer. Curious, what do you want me to tell you about?
Okay, hello Zosia. So you are known for documentary and feature films. So tell us, what made you decide to become a filmmaker, and what were your first steps in the industry like?
Sure. Well, I decided to be a film producer, I guess, pretty early on. Maybe I didn't know back then that it was film producing that I was after, but I think I was maybe even 15 years old when I started to think about this kind of future for myself. I was very much into movies. I was growing up in a home where there was a lot of films being played all the time. My parents' friends were film directors, so I was all the time constantly in this environment. And pretty much when I found out that something like film production exists in high school, I already thought that this is a career or at least academic path that I could take on. And it came much later that I really started to work in film production because I was told when I was in this very moment when you decide where do you want to study, uh, I was told by one of those directors whom I knew from my first days, just don't go study film production. This is a waste of time. Don't do it. You will learn everything while working. Do something else. Study something that broadens your horizons. Just forget about film production. So pretty much this is what I did. Um, I studied anthropology, something not directly. I didn't even think that it could have something in common with film production. I only discovered it much later. And I worked for film festivals during my time at the university. And this is how I met people. This is how I kind of got the vibe. And only when I started to work with documentary films, I discovered how much my background from anthropology helps me in this work.
So, you don't regret actually studying anthropology instead of film production?
No, not at all. I really loved my time at the university and my anthropology studies. And as I said, um, it wasn't obvious from the beginning, but um, every day in my work, when I produce documentary films, I use a lot of tools or maybe soft skills that I learned back there. And the only thing that I didn't get from uh, studying outside of the film community is that I had to get to know many people, not through school, but through my everyday work, which, you know, uh, came a bit later in time for me, but still my network got created since I started to work.
So it sounds like the decision to get into the industry was quite a risky one. And what would you say was like the turning point in your career, like a make it or break it point? Like, what was the moment where you felt that what you're doing is going to change your career and either boost it or not?
Right. So for sure, there was one moment like this, and it was when the director of the film that I mean, the director whom I knew for some time already, for at least 5 years, and I've been working with her. She approached me. It was 2022, the beginning, saying that she is visiting a refugee camp in Białystok, and she wants to make a film about the refugee crisis of the Polish-Belarusian border. And this was just like a beginning of the refugee crisis in Poland. It started only in August, so a few months before. And as I partially live in this region of Poland, I'm here right now, I could see the change of the landscape, change of the surrounding um, since the crisis started, and I felt completely hopeless about it and helpless about it. So I really needed something that could make me feel that I am active or that I am doing at least some small thing that makes a change. And when she approached me with this subject, it would be also my first film as a producer. I thought that this is exactly how I can use my skills, how I can use the way I function on everyday basis and are not outside of my kind of maybe not comfort zone, but I wasn't ready to go myself to the border, but I was able to do a film about it.
So, how was the first production like? What were the stages of it? And do you see any improvement for the films that you were doing recently?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, um, like in most of the films, the stages are clear. The first is called development, then you have production, post-production, and within the post-production there is editing, and then premiere. But in our case, everything was so urgent because when we started to do this project, the crisis was already in full swing, and the family that we were following was already in the camp, already like many events happening in their lives that we simply had to film because otherwise there would be no film. So in our case, the development, production, and post-production mixed up in one big phase. The major part of shooting that we did was actually made in around, I would say, 2 months, which is a very speedy time for any documentary. Documentary films tend to be a very long process. The previous film that I've been working on, it took 5 years with the director that I mentioned,
Oh, wow.
like from the very beginning to the very end, but it was 5 years in total. In our case, it was 2 years, and the filming itself was like super quick.
So I have another question for you. Earlier you said that documenting what was happening in the refugee camps sort of made you feel like you could help in a way. And so is this what you think is valuable about documentary films and what makes them different from feature films? What are the differences in your experience on how you work with those films and how you manage different genres and how impactful they are to you and to your career?
Yes, absolutely. That's how I see documentaries and difference between them and fiction films, in many cases at least. Uh, and the impact that documentaries mostly can bring is the visibility to the subjects and people who usually just don't have any agenda. And in that case, this was my main, I would say, driving force, that there is a huge number of people suffering who has absolutely no voice, or their voice is absolutely unheard, their stories are being silent. And obviously, this is not the fact that we will make the film will not change the world, but I think deep inside I was feeling that we are bringing um, their dignity back. And actually, it was the biggest compliment that I once heard on one festival when someone said that this is what we did, and this was my motivation to make this film. This is generally my view on documentaries, that we bring unknown people and unknown stories to the screen, and this simply makes other people aware of certain things, and this is already a difference that we can make.
So you would say that this is what gives you the biggest satisfaction, right, in your work. Is there anything else that you find that is very valuable about what you do?
Yes, certainly this brings me a lot of satisfaction, but I think that what I really love about documentary filmmaking is that pretty much you are following someone's life. You film much more than in will end up on the screen, and your work is to make a story out of someone's life. So every cut has a huge meaning. So your choices while editing the film and while deciding on the storytelling style has a huge meaning. And I think this is like you don't have control over it. So you really have to kind of go through everything that happened or could happen. And um, I just really admire this craft, I would say.
This seems like a lot of responsibility. Was it hard at first to take such responsibility on yourself?
For sure. I mean, producers' profession is always about responsibility on many levels, like from the financial and legal to simply like human, because we are responsible for our characters. We cannot. I mean, for me, it's super important not to harm anybody who is filmed. So if we take someone's stories, we really carry the story in our hands, and we cannot harm that person. So obviously, it was a very delicate project because those Kurdish migrants that we were talking about in the film, they were super vulnerable, right? So they were in a unknown country. I mean, foreign country, completely new. Reality, they were really kind of, I would say, they were up to other people in a large part. So we felt that whatever we do, we cannot make them our kind of. We have to take care of their subjectivity. So that we never can do anything that makes them feel like they are just being used for something. So there is responsibility on many levels for the producer.
And would you say that what would you say are the attitudes of the audience towards documentary films? And have you noticed any changes in those attitudes in the past years?
Well, like since pandemics and since the streaming's popularity got so high, obviously there are changes like globally. Um, in the case of documentary audience, I think it's always been quite a faithful audience, loyal audience. So they are still there. Um, the film festivals are the best way to find them, and they are very engaged. But I think in general, artistic cinema became a niche even more than it was. So it really feels like you are making an event when you screen your film to the audience. It's actually how the industry reacted to those changes that they even like the current kind of wave of how you present artistic films is through so-called event distribution. So this is the way of presenting the film together with the discussion, together with a maybe concert, maybe some art exhibition, something aside, something extra, because otherwise people will stay at home.
And which one of the movies you've produced you think left the biggest impact on the audience?
Mm, well, it's a difficult question. um, I don't know if I could say like one title that was the biggest, because uh, depending on what factors you measure, but there are some films that I worked on that were super successful in terms of visibility and awards that they got. So, for example, the two big titles like that were Pianoforte and the Balcony film. Um, and I'm pretty sure that the Balcony movie was one of those that also was very impactful. I could see during the premiere and other screenings how strong were the reactions of the audiences. Actually, pianoforte was similar. People were really emotional, and this is what we aim for as filmmakers. So for sure, in that sense, the experience of watching those films was very powerful to the people. But the discussion that was raised after the screenings, for sure, was completely different in scope and in the thematic scope as well after Silent Trees. So people were also very, very moved and also thinking outside of the film itself.
Okay, so maybe those one and which one of the movies left the biggest impact on you instead?
Yes.
Which one was your favorite?
Right.
If you can choose,
Well,
it's a hard choice probably.
yeah. Yes, but I still think that probably it was Silent Trees for different reasons. Not only because the story was so, like, for me, this kind of stories are just impossible to walk next to it and forget it. So it kind of still lives inside me. I still kind of think about what I saw during the process and what I saw on the screen. And as it was such an important point on the on my in my career as a first film that really made me established me as a producer and opened many doors for me. Well, that's why I would say that this one was the one.
And do you believe that a good movie has to leave an impact, that you have to think about it afterwards, or also good movie can just be good, but then not really think about it that deep?
I think that that a good film, a definition of a good film is that it makes an impact on you. It can be only aesthetic impact, but aesthetic impact also lasts. So maybe um, even if it doesn't provoke a discussion inside your head, it provokes some other sensations, and the sensations are equally valuable. Maybe you will, reflect on what those sensations were much later, but the fact that the film makes you feel something, I think that this is the definition of a good film. If you watch, 90 or nowadays even more minutes of something on the screen and it doesn't make you feel anything, for me this means that something is lacking, and this is not precisely what I call a good film.
And what are some genres or topics that you haven't worked with yet and you would like to explore? Or maybe you have a current dream project or something like that?
I have several projects in development, so I'm kind of entering into the genres or types of productions that I've wanted to explore. I think that one of them is particularly intriguing for me because it will be a mockumentary, and as mockumentary pretty much doesn't exist on the Polish landscape of films being made. I'm very curious of that one, and I'm very happy for like simply of the adventure of experimenting with this form. And the films I like in general, and maybe one of the ones that I'm producing right now is a bit like that, but still I think there is a lot of exploration to be made in that sense. Are hybrid films that balance on the border between fiction and documentary, or they use tools that make them not be clearly one of the on or the other. So, for example, a film that made a huge impact on me recently was a film called All We Imagine as Light, which is technically a fiction film, but if you don't know that it is a fiction, you watch it for a long time, being sure that it is a documentary. And I really love this kind of sensation when you don't really know what it is. So this is a kind of films that I want to produce next.
Okay, and going back to your childhood, because even though you chose anthropology, you always liked film production. So, did you have any role model for this childhood or even now?
Well, I wouldn't. I mean, I didn't know that I liked film production. I knew that I loved films. I was like watching films with my parents all the time. Um, so the big classical titles like Citizen Kane, I watched when I was 15. Obviously, back then I couldn't understand it, but this was already the vibe I was growing up in. Um, and uh, film production as itself came later because uh, around high school, I would say, we, meaning my friends from that time, started to organize a theater festival in our high school, which now sounds like a small project, but actually it was quite a established tradition in that high school, quite a big event. And I kind of, I think I realized that doing this kind of project gives me a lot of satisfaction. So I discovered the skills that later I learned that this is the film production skills as well. So this is how I kind of came to the conclusion that doing this kind of projects and this kind of using this kind of skills can be combined with my passion to films, and this is film production. So I would say I didn't have a role model of a film producer. I had a role model of a filmmaker, which was Paweł Łoziński. But but my conclusion that my skills and my passion can come together in one profession. This was my discovery in high school times.
And what fascinated you the most about the cinema back then? Was it the pictures or the colors?
Well, again, it's not easy to answer, but I think this kind of immersing power that cinema has, where you dive into a world that doesn't exist next to you, or a story that is just out of your reach, and you feel like you're inside. You feel like it's yours in a way, or maybe it's not yours, but it vibrates with you, and it intrigues you so much. This is I think what I loved about cinema since the beginning.
So you would say that every project that you make is kind of a piece of you, a part of you, of who you are?
For sure. I mean, I would say that I am unable to make films that are not like that. I just cannot find motivation to do that.
And can you find yourself in some movies that you produce?
Mm, Not directly, because they are not stories based on my life, not stories based on my experiences, but the fact that I am connected to each and one of them, um, in an indirect sense, like indirectly something, some string is playing inside of me. Um, Mm, and this is actually where I recognize that those films are universal, because if a story from somebody from the other side of the world resonates with me so deeply, it means that it's not about me and this person. It's about something bigger, about some bigger and more universal human
Hmm.
experience.
And if you were to give advice to young filmmakers, would you say that the one thing they need is passion? What things do young filmmakers need? Do you think to be successful?
Well, yes, I think passion would be one of those important things, because working in film industry is not easy for many reasons. So it requires some driving force that will keep you inside. Obviously, you can enter try and then resign. But if my advice is, what do you do to stay inside? I think you have to really love, and now you can love different aspects of the work. But I think it has to be passion that drives you. Otherwise, you probably will resign.
Okay, so thank you for
Thank you so
this
much.
podcast and hope to see you soon.
Yes, thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
you
you
too.
too.
Thank you. So nice to meet you.